Waitress refuses to serve black man, then he returns as the restaurant owner. Some stories are more than just a sequence of events. They are tapestries woven with threads of memory, injustice, and the quiet, unyielding power of dignity. They remind us that the past is never truly buried, and that history has a way of circling back, offering chances not for revenge, but for redemption. This is one of those stories, a tale where a single moment of prejudice in a dusty restaurant unravels a hidden legacy, and where the measure of a man is taken not by the slights he endures, but by the future he builds from them. Let us know where you are watching from, and what time you found this video. The bell that was hung above the door of the Gilded Spoon rang out with a sound that was as icy and chilly as the air conditioning that washed over him. The old leather of Elijah Carter's briefcase felt soft and familiar to his fingers as he entered the building. His steps were measured by the fact that he was 82 years old, but his back was straight and his outfit was perfectly made. A guy who had constructed empires from fantasies, he brought with him the quiet gravity of a man who had accomplished this. He selected a booth that was located by the window, and the vinyl sighing quietly as he sat down. He positioned his briefcase next to him, not as a sign of his social standing, but rather as a compendium of his entire life. S-work, with the same garish, gold-veined wallpaper, the same slight sense of disinfectant, and the same fried food fragrance. The restaurant was precisely the same as he remembered it from decades before. It served as a time capsule that contained a particular kind of America. A young waitress by the name of Clara approached with a worn-out smile that did not reach her eyes. Her mind was racing with thoughts of her evening plans and the unfairness of her split shift. As soon as she laid eyes on him, it entirely collapsed. She cast a swift and trained stare over him, taking in everything from his wise, aged face to his fine suit. At the same time, a script that had been written by decades of discrimination performed itself in her thoughts. "I'm sorry," she replied, her tone of voice trembling softly. "You will be required to depart. We do not treat anyone of your sort here." The remarks did not hit me like a rap on the head. When Elijah arrived, it was as if a stone had been dropped into a deep, deep well. The sound of the stone reverberated with the memories of 1,000 other occasions like it. His body did not flinch. The only thing he did was look at her, his dark eyes containing an entire universe of patience and sadness. The tone of his voice was low and rumbling, like thunder in the distance. "Are you certain?" he asked. She uttered the term policy, which served as a weak defense. She made a hazy motion in the direction of the kitchen. "Now, please, don't make a scene." Elijah gave a slow approval. In no way did he argue. It was not a pleading. His only action was to reach inside his breast pocket, and Clara tightened up for a brief instant, anticipating a wallet or a protest from him. However, he took out a straightforward checkbook that was encased in leather and had gold embossing that had become softer with age. The check was torn out of his fingers and placed on the table after he had written with a slow and careful hand. Subsequently, he stood up, took his briefcase, and proceeded to leave the building while the bell chimed, signaling his departure from the building. After grabbing the check, Clara was getting ready to crumple it. But the sum caused her to let out a gasp. There was no money for a meal involved. The number contained an excessive number of zeros. $50,000 in total. To add insult to injury, the memo line contained 2 lines written in the same steady script. For the building, her boredom was pierced by a panic that was icy and piercing. She hurried to the manager, who had a pale face, and phoned the district manager. The district manager quickly called the owner, Mr. Abernathy, who was a reclusive and elderly individual. It was a mystery, a threat, and a puzzle that the check was. Who was this individual? They followed the name of the account, which was E. Carter Holdings. After a week had passed, a black vehicle arrived at the parking lot. Elijah Carter made his next appearance, but this time he was not by himself. Alongside him, a weak, elderly guy who was leaning heavily on a cane was walking. This man was Mr. Harold Abernathy, the founder of the Gilded Spoon. He was surrounded by a team of lawyers who were dressed in sharp professional attire. In the main dining room, where Clara was nervously wiping down tables that were already pristine, they all filed in together from the hallway. Mr. Abernathy's voice, which was thin and raspy, broke the silence that had been present. "Are you, Clara?" A single word. The woman approached with trembling. Mr. Abernathy made a motion toward Elijah. "You are looking at Mr. Elijah Carter. It's not for a dinner that he's here. He is here to accept responsibility for it." When Elijah gazed at Clara, he did not do it with wrath, but rather with a profound and unbearable calm. "Do you know why this restaurant is called the Gilded Spoon?" he asked her with curiosity. In silence, she gave a headshake. When Elisha said, "It was my grandfather's phrase," his eyes wandered to the hideous wallpaper as if he could see through it to the past. "It was my grandfather's phrase. He was a chef, and he was an exquisite one. During the time that this building was a private club, he worked for Mr. Abernathy's grandpa in this particular building. In order to make this establishment famous, he developed the recipes. He was the one who created the secret sauce, the cornbread dressing, and the peach cobbler that people go great distances to get their hands on. He allowed the silence to linger in the air, as full with history as it was. On the other hand, he was never permitted to serve them. For customers who would never have had the opportunity to shake his hand, he prepared meals in a secluded and hot kitchen. He used to joke that they were given a gilded spoon, which is a life that appeared to be luxurious from the outside, but was actually constructed through the efforts of people who were kept in the dark. Clara was the focus of Elijah's attention once again. "It was my grandfather. Who was he? And it was 60 years ago when I came in here, a young man wearing a jacket that had been patched up, with the intention of finding a job as a bus. It was Mr. Abernathy's father who kicked me out of the house." Slowly, Mr. Abernathy nodded his head, a look of embarrassment appearing on his face. "The man who was my father was a timid man. The world that he knew was undergoing transformation, yet he clung to the ugly. During his final moments, it was one of the few things he regretted. The eminent chef and his grandson were the subjects of his recounting to me. One of his statements was, 'We built our gold on their backs.'" The conversation continued with Elijah. "That moment did not have the power to break me. That pumped me up. I created my businesses, and Tim, I am now wealthy. And as soon as I learned that the Gilded Spoon was having difficulties, I knew exactly what I needed to do. This is not for vengeance, in order to maintain peace." After opening his briefcase, he took out a single photograph that had yellowed completely. It depicted a man who was standing in a kitchen with a slight smile on his face while wearing a chef's cap full of pride. "My grandfather, Joseph." Then Elijah turned his gaze squarely toward Clara. "And you," he added, his tone slowly becoming more gentle. "It was here that your great-grandmother worked as a dishwasher. She went by the name Sarah. It was my granddad who counted her as a friend. During the Great Depression, she brought items that were left over from his inventions back to her family. Little one, we are all intertwined by invisible strands that bind us together." It was as if the world were tilting. Her bigotry and her casual cruelty seemed insignificant and foolish when compared to the vastness and interconnectedness of this history. It was Mr. Abernathy who Elijah turned to. "Everything is in accordance with what we agreed upon. My intention is to acquire the eatery. The building will not be demolished. Rebirth is on the horizon." The spectacular reopening was the topic of conversation in the community 1 year later. The flashy gold had been removed, and in its place was a warm, dark wood in addition to gentle lighting. The window was adorned with the new name, which was engraved with pride. Joseph's Table. The dinner was a celebration of the original dishes that Joseph Carter had created, and they were finally given recognition to their originator. The walls were not decorated with generic art, but rather with a gallery of images depicting Joseph in his kitchen, the original crew, and a timeline of the building's actual history. Also present at the host's stand was Clara, who greeted each and every guest with a sincere and friendly grin. She was not terminated by Elijah. She had the option of either being defined by a single embarrassing event, or learning from it and becoming a part of the story's redemption. He had presented her with this opportunity. She made the decision to be redeemed. She had become the most ardent supporter of the restaurant, always recounting its intricate history to anyone who would listen to her explaining it. On the night of the opening, the bell rang not with a chilly judgment, but with a friendly greeting for Elijah as he entered the building. Clara looked up at him, her eyes welling up with tears and a sense of appreciation. She delivered the words, "Welcome to Joseph's table, Mr. Carter," in a voice that was confident and steady. "Your table is ready." He flashed a genuine, profound smile that extended all the way to his eyes. While he was reclaiming a building, he was more than just the owner. He was a grandchild. And he was finally able to put a place at the table for the man who had begun it all. He demonstrated that the most potent return is not one of revenge, but rather of legacy. Pretty amazing, right? There's always something new to learn and uncover every day. If you enjoyed this story and want more mind-blowing facts like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss an update.